Hello there, I'm Royce, and welcome to part 2 of my Star Wars animation to live action adaptation video, The Faraway Downs to my nearly 3-hour Australia original. In part 1, we explored the styles of every recent animated Star Wars series and how they adapted existing live action designs to try and understand why live action adaptations of animated original characters took the approaches they did, factoring in the practicalities of performing in them, filming in them, and the comfort of the wearer, to budget and time constraints, and whether or not the productions even had the permission or interest in adapting them, not to mention a difference in artistic vision, creating something different from what you expected. I've been joined by 5 immensely talented and passionate Star Wars creators in analysing these designs. The Mermaid, an artist and game developer with many years' experience adapting colourful alien designs. Ashla's Workshop, a cosplayer with a great deal of knowledge in creating Togruta costumes. Unknown Asajj, cosplayer and artist knowledgeable in costumes of Asajj Ventress. And my occasional radio co-hosts, Joshua, a historian, writer, and longtime Star Wars fan, and Jacob, who brings something of a layman's impression to these designs. Anyway, let's get back to it.
It doesn't matter where we come from, Admiral. Our will to be free is what's going to beat you.
Twi'lek Rebel pilot Hera Syndulla is one of my favourite characters from across all of Star Wars. She stuck out to me with her care and compassion, resilience and ingenuity in tight spots. With green skin, bluish-green eyes, Leku tattoos, and an outfit resembling a Rebel pilot suit, she went through many iterations before the designers settled on this final look. With the flight cap, goggles and gloves, she really brings that World War pilot look to Star Wars. All she needs is a bomber jacket. Ah, perfect. Now about a scarf. The World War II connections run deeper, with Hera's natural Ryloth accent being very French, a decision made with the development of the Ryloth Twi'leks in the Clone Wars to bring a French resistance flavour to the show. Voice actress Vanessa Marshall has brought Hera to life through Rebels, The Bad Batch, and Starfighter video game Squadrons, where she performed motion capture as well. Something about this Hera always felt a little off to me. The skin tone and eye colour is more muted compared to the animation, and the face never quite felt right. I wonder if it's down to the character likeness. Puppeteered by Marshall's performance, it doesn't quite match up with her face structure. This is usually why the likenesses of actors is used in game projects like this. As much as we can hope for Cameron Monaghan, Tina Ivlev or Daniel Roebuck to reprise their roles in the flesh, their characters having their likenesses isn't some grand plan for it to happen. Yet. Back to Hera. Fan-made renders posing Hera's character model feel a little more true to the character, so it definitely feels like it's pulled from the animated source. But if Hera was made to resemble Vanessa Marshall a lot more, the appearance could have worked better. Hera appeared in a few other live-action styles before Mary Elizabeth Winstead. The Black Series figure and accompanying artworks are super loyal to the animation. They have just the right attitude. One comic cover sees her captured by Dr. Aphra, and feels very true to her. It's one of my favourite works of her. It's just a shame that the comic before this sees her murder Dr. Aphra's Tuka, which is basically a house cat. I'm trying really hard to ignore this because I'm wondering, what the heck were the writers thinking? Explosive house cats? Oh, serious? Is that a reference to that game? Hera's outfit in live action keeps the colour scheme from the animations but updates the clothing, seeming to focus more on actress Mary Elizabeth Winstead's physicality. I was pretty apprehensive to hear she'd been cast in the role. I'm a fan of her work, but I don't think she was the obvious casting choice when I thought of Hera. I also think that Ramona Flowers is massively overrated. I know those are fighting words, but she's far more than that as an actress. I loved her in 10 Cloverfield Lane and Fargo Season 3. Hera is a character who could have been played by any number of fantastic actors, who both looked the part and proved their suitability in other roles. But we're not here to talk about casting, but instead the costume.
I have cosplayed as Hera for about 2 years now. One of the interesting things that you kind of develop as a cosplayer is you tend to have an eye for pragmatic designs. I mean, also working in video games, that helps me too. But often when you go from animation to live action, you always have to make changes, but you often see design changes. And when you boil them down, it's almost always tied to pragmatism. You know, it's like, oh, she's not wearing overalls. Yeah, because the actress doesn't want to put her overalls on the floor every time she has to go to the bathroom. And I'm not saying I necessarily agree with these. I think that some of them are also adapted to make sense for modern sensibilities, like high-waisted pants are in. There's always going to be changes because every medium has something that it does better than other mediums. Like animation does stuff better than live action and vice versa. The same way, music does different things than paintings. They're all art and they all evoke certain feelings, but the translation is very different. Well, what's interesting is I mentioned I was a game dev, and when I was working at EA, I was not directly working with the team at Motive that did Squadrons, but I was in the same office. And everyone knew that I was a huge Star Wars fan and I was a huge Rebels fan. So when they were developing the model for Hera, I naturally was very nosy and curious. And the jacket isn't a new addition in the live action version. It's actually an addition from Star Wars Squadrons. They gave her a leather jacket on top of her traditional outfit. So she's almost like not the gateway, that sounds bad. And she's almost like the bridge between the more stylish simplification of what happened in Ahsoka, the live action series, and how she appeared in Star Wars Rebels. So it wasn't 100% taken out of nowhere. It was something that had been developed for a video game that is super fun to play. So if you don't have it, you should consider picking it up. It's basically, X-Wing versus TIE from back in the day. Super. I can't stop promoting stuff. But yeah, the tight pants, I'm not 1,000% down with. I do like the high-waisted. I do like some of the design choices they made and the construction of the garment. I think that baggy flight pants and kind of that flight suit makes a bit more sense for her, especially. But I mean, she has moved from a place where she's more in the pilot seat needing an ejection suit to being, a figurehead who's a general and doesn't need that sort of functionality. So yeah, maybe she just wanted to wear tight pants. I think that switch from hands-on pilot running around in Rebels to a more, dare I say, bureaucratic role as a general and as a leader, that the design would reflect those changes. So I don't 1,000% love it, but I completely understand it. However, I did not love the makeup. As someone who does cosplay and does a lot of aliens, my first cosplay was actually Liara Tassoni from the Mass Effect series. Then I did Shiala from the Mass Effect series, and I've done a couple of Twi'leks as well. So I like to paint myself in a ridiculous amount of colors. And one of the things that I've learned through trial and error and a couple of online classes is that you have to use so many colors. Like when I paint myself for Hera, there's an ochre, there's a tan, there's purple, there is a rust color. Like you have to do so much work to make it look like skin. I even give myself like speckling, like a little bit of freckles. And not to toot my own horn, but I think that's one of the reasons I tend to photograph really well. Otherwise, you end up just kind of looking like a flat smear.
It works well. Humans aren't smooth. Our skin is covered in pores, freckles, and bits of hair that all catch the light. This attention to detail makes even the most alien-looking characters feel tangible. Winstead's Syndulla could have done with this effect, as in close-ups the application looks a little heavy and obviously painted.
So I was not a fan of the makeup, and it was shocking because Ahsoka's contour got very good from early Mandalorian to Ahsoka, so it seemed very weird to me that the same effort wasn't put into Hera. So I'm not sure what that was about, but it was very distracting, and the contacts annoyed me so much. Like, I would rather an actor use their own eyes. So one of my makeup design heroes is Michael Westmore, who does all of the aliens for Star Trek. Is it blasphemous to say Star Trek when I'm talking about Star Wars? Anyways, he's brilliantly talented, and one of his rules when it came to designing aliens was he didn't want to put too much stuff on them so that you couldn't see their performance, and contacts were a huge no-no. Like, it took Deep Space Nine and going to the Gamma Quadrant and wanting to do something really different for them to put contacts, because you lose the performance, you lose the actor. It was upsetting to me that when she's having a big speech moment, all I could see was like one of her contacts drifting slightly.
Looking at Deep Space Nine, you have villainous characters like the Vorta, who wear contact lenses to add to their overall alien appearance. Meanwhile, a more friendly character like the android Data has contact lenses to convey his synthetic nature, and they went through many combinations and variations before finding a look that wasn't off-putting. Whereas for Hera, the look is rather startling. Oh yeah, another thing, I went and tried out another element of her costume which was absent from the live-action version, giving her the orange stripe on her headwear. What do you think? Is it just right, or too much colour? The headpiece is bigger than the animation, but the animation doesn't have to contend with fitting someone's hair under it all. And big Twi'lek noggins date back to Ula in Return of the Jedi, but it is possible to fit it closer to the head. The vibrant green contact lenses matches Rebels, but over Winstead's naturally dark brown eyes they especially stick out like a sore thumb, and in some trailer shots they unfortunately look like they're wandering, meaning first impressions gave her an unfortunate cross-eyed appearance. To demonstrate quickly, the structure of the eye is really interesting and pretty complicated. The iris, the coloured part of the eye, isn't painted onto the whites, the sclera. Viewed side on, it's sort of like a dish into the eyeball, with the cornea over the top as a bubble, protecting the iris and the pupil. When light hits an eyeball, it catches on the curve of the iris dish on the other side of where the light hits the ball, to be really technical. Contact lenses are curved outwards, and even when they're realistically detailed, they can still feel unnatural when the light hits them, because they don't act like a real eye. You see this issue with Geralt in the Witcher series, but it's not really an issue with Legolas in the Lord of the Rings movies. So how do you get around it? Well, I found out the actress Vivian Lyra Blair, who plays the young Princess Leia in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, actually has blue eyes. It seems like they used natural blue to key them brown and increase her likeness to Carrie Fisher. Before I saw the Ahsoka series, I speculated that if you had an actor with dark eyes, but needed them to be a lighter shade and had all the money in the world, you could have the actor wear blue or green contact lenses and use that as a base to switch them to a more natural appearance using VFX. I wonder if they ended up using this method for close-up shots. Hera ended up okay, but first impressions unfortunately left a lot to nitpick, and I'm trying to do so in a productive way. I heard some fun suggestions for other actors who could work as Hera, and one day I'd like to see Vanessa Marshall don the green paint. There's also so many cosplayers of Hera who've done outstanding costumes and makeup, so let's celebrate them and their incredible work.
I know when something is near and dear to your heart that you're always going to find things that you don't like because you have such a strong connection to it. And I would never say, it was garbage or it wasn't great. And I know that the people who worked on this probably worked really hard and made the choices that they thought were best. I just felt that it did not translate in a way that was successful. So that's me. Those are my opinions. Feel free to completely disagree with them because, you're obviously watching / listening this because you love Star Wars and you love Rebels specifically. So let's let our love bring us together and participate in constructive critique. And may the Force be with you.
Jason, son of Hera and Kanan, briefly appears in the epilogue to Rebels, now with a more prominent role in Ahsoka. Some friends of mine were apparently put off by the animated Jason's startling appearance, and I'm not about to criticise a kid, even an animated one, but his look in Ahsoka is a lot more developed and different, it's easier to take in. Jason's pretty good. He's not the first example of a human and Twi'lek partnership. The Clone Wars and the Bad Batch featured a batch of characters, the Lorquanes. Twi'lek farmer Sue Lorquane had 2 half-human and half-Twi'lek children with a human father at some point prior to the war, and was now in a relationship with clone trooper deserter and human Cut. Her children take more after her, resembling Twi'leks, so as in real life, whatever genetic traits are carried over are basically a lottery. So yeah, humans and Twi'leks can mate. No, there's no scientific reasoning. Star Wars isn't technically science fiction, it's space opera, a fantasy. Anything can go, from humans/Twi'leks looking either human in Jason's case or Twi'lek in the case of Sue's children.
I suggest you don't worry about this sort of thing and just enjoy yourself.
But yeah, the green of Jason's hair remains. Do you think it's a result of Sabine's hair dye interference, or does he take it on from his mum's green skin tone? His eyes are darker and look more natural, and he's older. And it's probably likely his name came from Legends character Jason Solo. A fun fact and confusing thing for old EU fans when they heard that Jason was in the series.
I'm Clan Wren, House Vizsla. I came here to settle a score.
Sabine has always been one of those interesting characters where her design actually changed over time, because that was very much within her character. She was an artist. She always changed her stuff to reflect, the current situation, and I am quite happy with it. It's a bit too colourful for me sometimes, but I am very excited.
When I first saw Sabine, I thought she was a Mirilan, like Luminara and Dooley, and everyone's favourite shock reveal villain, Barriss Offee. But turns out she's just human, and for Sabine I think they went a bit too heavy with that yellowish green in the skin tone. As Josh said, her look changes dramatically season to season. I assumed her outfit in live action would build upon that established with Bo-Katan's. But as I looked closely at the concept art for the epilogue, I noticed her usual 2-plated chest armour had been expanded to 3, with the painted designs faithfully replicated across to live action. Much like Bo-Katan's outfit, Sabine's look is spot on here. When Natasha Liu Bordizzo was announced as Sabine, I'd only seen her in one thing, that being the Daniel Radcliffe meme movie, Guns Akimbo, and based purely upon that, I was pretty easy to convince that she was perfect! Perfect! I really liked what Natasha brought to Sabine, and she feels like a natural continuation of what Tia Sircar did across the 4 seasons of Rebels. So Natasha's research of going back and seeing that character development really paid off. It's brought a whole level of new appreciation to the character, and both actresses did an incredible job at exploring Sabine at these different points in her life.
The actress they chose for Sabine, I think, did a good job. She encapsulates Sabine's character and everything. Again, you can complain all you want, but it's almost impossible to accurately translate from that kind of stylized cartoon to live action. They chose an actress who performed the character well, looked the part, played the part, and I think they did quite a savvy choice there.
I think they translated her very well to the live action series. The actor got the right face shape and overall look, in my opinion. Her clothes and armor are looking great as well, so I'm very pleased with that.
I think the biggest disappointment with Sabine is the decision to cut that gorgeous hair. I know you need to match the pre-established look from the Rebels epilogue, and I'm pretty sure there's people more in the know about hair care who'd criticise the greasiness or the exposed roots. The colours are so vibrant and really bring a lot of character. You can just imagine it tied back, flowing from the back of her helmet as she tears down the empty highways of Lothal, or spins her lightsaber about, or gets up to some sort of confrontation with Shin Hati. In a way, Sabine's exposed roots are a perfect example of the Star Wars design philosophy, that of a used universe, one with a history that looks like it's existed long before we came along, where every dent and scratched and exposed root has a story, and not just in terms of,
and this is the dent where Cad Bane shot Boba Fett. Who needs any more characterization than that when you got a jetpack and a flamethrower?
I mean things like, this dent is from someone dropping their datapad off the table, this scrape is from someone not looking where they were going when they were carrying a container down the hall, and these chips are from when Boba fell down the stairs of Slave 1 as soon as he finished repainting his armour. Like seriously, he just repainted it. Where did he get all that damage from? Did he leave it there intentionally? Build up an air of mystique? And I mean, let's not even get started on the Book of Boba Fett when he starts that show with all these artful scratches and chips, and then by the end of the show, after he's gone through all this stuff, he looks exactly the same. But back to Sabine. All in all, she's an incredible translation, and while her portrayal might be down to a person's preference, I think she did an incredible job at bringing this character to life. But how about some other adaptations of Sabine? Sabine appeared in a live-action form in a few pieces of merchandise, like this statue from Diamond Select, that does a reasonable job at depicting her, if being somewhat let down by the paint job on the eyes. When it comes to protection, her armour provides the bare minimum, and while it kind of works in stylised animation, in live action it is translated very literally, leaving a lot of gaps and exposed areas for damage. This is most obvious in her Black Series action figure, originally released in 2016, then later in 2020 with improved face printing. Consistent to the show, and realistically proportioned, it achieves what these figures set out to do. The box art does a similar conversion through different methods. It feels like a version of Sabine that works for the purposes of the art. Looking at the armour worn by Mandalorian women across live action, I had a crack at designing Sabine and her armour from the animations while matching that realistic styling. I also have here some stellar Sabine cosplayers who adapted these designs to their own costumes.
I like your attitude. Good luck. You're gonna need it.
Beginning life as an unused piece of concept art for Chewbacca, it would be adapted into a new species called a Lasat for Tatooine Manhunt, a 1988 expansion to the Star Wars role-playing game. Lasats would appear in the new canon, now with digitigrade legs and purple fur, represented by Garazeb Aurelius, or Zeb. Other Lasats would appear in the years following, with crime boss Dryden Voss, originally played by the late great Michael K. Williams, intended to be a Lasat portrayed through motion capture. 2019's Jedi Fallen Order would introduce Jaro Tapal, the Jedi Master of Cal Kestis, appearing in flashbacks across the game. There's something I find really unsettling about Tapal's appearance. His skin is weirdly untextured, his nose looks like it's sliced off, giving him a sort of book-accurate Tyrion Lannister look. But I think the biggest issue is his eyes. In the animation, Lasats are shown to have their eye a solid green, and here with the whites of his eyes, iris and pupils, they're too human and it makes Jaro Tapal feel like a disfigured man more than a friendly alien. Other attempts to adapt Zeb and Lasats in general were far more successful. The Rebels design is translated pretty faithfully in the Black Series figure. While not looking his most cheerful, it's obvious who he's supposed to be. The box art does well to represent him too, and while he feels a bit more flat on the top of his head than the figure, he's still got that essence of Zeb. It was a real triumph in Season 3 of The Mandalorian, where Zeb appeared in the CGI flesh. His skin and hair catches the light naturally, he's got the right amount of purple without being overwhelming. But the thing that makes him really work is his eyes. The whites of his eyes are still there, but the iris is made much larger than on Jaro Tapal. It's sort of like a cat's or a dog's eye that appear mostly coloured at a glance, while still looking and feeling realistic. They even managed to get a vibrant green to match the animation, rather than settling on a more neutral colour.
I thought they did quite a good job with Zeb. I know he hasn't got the big yellow eyes like he does in the cartoon, but I feel like that could be kind of hard to translate and make it look serious. Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I thought they did a fantastic job. It looked like him. He played like him. It's just, everything about him was like, I liked it. I loved it. And I love Zeb from the Rebels. I know a lot of people didn't like Rebels. I personally loved it. Yeah, it was a slow start, but the characters are all really likable. And Zeb was one of the standout characters in the series, and he got translated very well to the big screen, which did make me very happy.
I was quite surprised to see him in a pilot's uniform. That being said, it's not quite a perfect translation, but it is a damn good translation into live action. And he does also look a bit more like a almost a shaved Wookiee.
Amazing. You could recognize him. He had the right voice and he looked amazing. His face moved just so cool, and loved him. Loved the short scene. I hope we see him again. Just very great.
Looking closer at Zeb, I found myself asking a question I never really had an answer to. That being, is Zeb furry or skinny? Is he covered in fur all over, resulting in his patterns? With a long mane he shaves into a beard and mutton chops? Or is his skin purple and striped with male pattern baldness and bits of body hair all over? I asked several people, fans and non-fans, as to whether they saw Zeb as being skinny or hairy, and results were pretty evenly split. What do you think Zeb was in Rebels?
This was all your fault.
It's pretty early in the morning for canned food, isn't it, Jim?
Astromech droid C-110P, or Chopper, is a part of the Rebels crew and belongs to Hera Syndulla, one of the few characters across all of Star Wars that Dave Filoni lent his acting talents to, after Embo and before Trapper Wolf. Chopper is a moody little droid with a body count that surely outstrips even Darth Vader.
Oh, Keith seems to have done himself a mischief.
He quickly became one of my favourite droid characters, thanks to his attitude that makes R2-D2 look polite.
What? What's that, mate?
Based off some early Ralph McQuarrie R2-D2 designs, with a shorter body and extra appendages, Chopper uses these to emote and get up to all sorts of mischief, and found himself being adapted into live action in various forms, but often taking the same route. Before discussing that, we need to take a quick look at R2-D2, who is shown to use a number of multi-tools to access computer terminals across the series. These tools are quite complex and technical in their design, and would be simplified in animation to resemble a flathead screwdriver. The same tool appears on Chopper in Rebels, while also having a pincer function. Chopper first appeared in a background cameo in Rogue One, and is very faithful to the source material. That's because this Chopper wasn't created for the film, but the Rebels companion recap series, Rebels Recon. Since learning this, I'm a lot more lenient on how literal a build he is. He's there to represent the animated character, and does so wonderfully. His appearance in Rogue One is just an Easter egg, and nothing more. Stepping into the Ahsoka series, he gets a significant overhaul, with enough details to make him hold up to a greater level of scrutiny next to other live-action droids. He's a lot more robust looking than R2, shorter, stockier, and because of that, in isolation he does look a little exaggerated and cartoony, but otherwise very well done. Not to criticise performances, but I think this Chopper could really do with some more hand acting to properly emote. Chopper appeared in action figure form in the Black series. There's no point going on about it, he's different from the Ahsoka series ever so slightly. The loose panel from Rebels is carried over to the figure, but not the Ahsoka version, technically making him slightly more accurate. But maybe Hera got around to fixing him in the years since.
And remember, the Force will be with you. Always.
Ezra Bridger grows a great deal over the Rebels series, and his live-action Ahsoka outfit, sighted in hologram form, seems to be a good match for how it looked at the end of the animation. Artwork and figure-wise, his appearance varies, but I think his Black series artwork works rather well. Since finding out that Ezra's inspiration could be found in Ralph Macchio from The Karate Kid, it's interesting that no one seemed to pull from this when drawing him. Iman Asfandi's portrayal of adult Ezra feels great, and he features his trademark cheek scars and even the vibrant blue eyes. They feel a little unreal to me, with how accurate they are in tones of the animation, but I've already spoken about eyes at length in Hera's section. Kanan Jarrus has yet to appear in live-action form outside some artwork. Rendering his face seems to be a bit tricky depending upon the artist and sculptor, but all hit upon something that could feasibly work for the character, but most just focus on how he looked before losing his vision and growing his beard. I'd like to see his original voice actor, Freddie Prinze Jr., appear in the role, even though he's a bit older in real life than Kanan is ever seen to be. To finish up the main Rebels crew, I illustrated the original cast as their characters. One major Rebel character to not feature in proper live-action form, yet, is Agent Kallus, a vicious ISB agent who comes to learn the error of his ways, and one of the fastest men alive. His distinctive mutton-chopped look sets him apart from the hairless, austere Imperials, and his ISB armour has shades of existing Imperial armours and uniforms. The armour made an appearance in Battlefront 2, worn by an original operative, that kind of makes me wish we saw this armour donned by one or more of the ISB officer characters we had in Andor. Kallus would appear in various artworks, mostly for the tabletop game Star Wars Legion, looking very grizzled, sort of like a cross between Liev Schreiber and Daniel Craig. It's a shame Kallus's voice actor, David Oyelowo, doesn't exactly look the part.
I Was lucky. Knocked out by the first blast.
So that's you.
That's me. It's always been my ambition to play a white ginger guy.
Well, there you go.
Honestly, when I found out it was him voicing Kallus, I was just like blown away. He brings such depth to the character, and gosh, I wouldn't mind seeing him play the role in live action one day. In fact, I gave it a sketch. Across this video, I've stuck to analysing adaptations of Star Wars characters rather than vehicles or weapons, those things being a lot more technical and more the domain of E.C. Henry, who was a considerable inspiration for this video. However, since Hera's ship, the Ghost, and its shuttle, Phantom 2, are so prominent in the series, they're practically characters themselves, and are well worth exploring. The Ghost is a VCX-100 light freighter, produced by the Corellian Engineering Corporation, who also made the YT series ship, the Millennium Falcon. Piloted by Hera Syndulla across the Rebels series, it's the mobile home of the Spectre's Rebel Cell, with sizable living quarters, unique cockpits, and turrets. The Ghost appeared as an Easter egg in Rogue One, then later in The Rise of Skywalker, likely the same model. Appearing on screen for only a few seconds, the ship still needed a significant overhaul to bring it up to the same level of detail seen on other iconic ships of the series. Details once rendered in pencil lines and brush strokes are now modelled in 3D, adding greater definition to the ship, and the panels along the rim are removed or replaced with greeblies. These add more visual interest and ties the ship's lineage to the same family as the Millennium Falcon. Proportion-wise, the Rebels Ghost and Rogue One Ghost are about the same, but those extra details bring it to life and makes the original look quite stark in contrast. Whether or not the same model is used from this point on remains to be seen. It's very likely been updated to withstand a greater level of scrutiny and perform actions necessitated by the story. The Phantom 2 rests at the rear of the Ghost. Following the loss of the original Phantom, a Separatist Sheathipede class shuttle was captured by the Spectres and converted to its new form to serve as a replacement. The dorsal fin was reduced in size, the armament increased, and the paint job matching the Ghost. Since the Separatist shuttle originated in live-action films, a few little changes to the existing design will see the Phantom 2 realised as it should be. The T-6 Jedi shuttle first appeared in the Clone Wars, before popping up across other animated series. Initially an unarmed transport for Jedi ambassadors, Ahsoka's featured a few enhancements and personalisations. The original design is very sparse in exterior detail, with smooth surfaces and a well-weathered paint job, but even next to other ship designs from the earlier seasons of the Clone Wars, it feels comparatively low res. A brief appearance at the tail end of Rebels adds more panels and chunkiness, making it feel more solid. I don't think this model was articulated either, since it doesn't move in the way that we know this ship can. The very same ship appears in Ahsoka, recreating these moments, and the model is spectacular, pictured here with ILM model maker John Goodson. It's still smooth compared to a ship like the Ghost, but has enough texture and detail to match and even surpass some live-action ships, feeling like it hails from a similar lineage as the Republic cruiser from the Phantom Menace. The series does a great job showing it off, inside and out, and really makes the T-6 shuttle a star. Loth Cats and Tuca are feline creatures that appear across the animated series, with round heads, flat faces, big ears, fluffy tails, and chicken legs. They seem to vary in being both wild and domesticated creatures, the size of a large house cat and of similar temperament. The Loth Cat appears briefly in The Mandalorian. For such a quick appearance, not too much time could be spent adapting them, so their looks are sort of like someone switched RTX on the Rebels version. The very literal interpretation works for a blink and you miss it moment, but doesn't quite stand up to scrutiny. The model in a standing pose looks a lot better, and I think while laying on the floor and having its head so in frame, it just sort of accentuated the weirdness of the design. But there are some beautiful little touches to this Loth Cat. His eyes are very cat-like, the whiskers are great, there's natural ridges to his face, even if the ears don't exactly look like they can hear. The newly designed Loth Cat is less round-headed, now portrayed by a puppet or animatronic, with lots of fluff, more definition to the face, darkened eyes more like the animation. They do have some colour to them when viewed in direct light, and the ears still sort of seem like stumps placed on the top of the head. Loth Cats also appear at the theme park Galaxy's Edge. different from the other two, sort of maintaining a cartoony look while looking quite friendly and cuddly. Given the amount of variety between real-life cats, it's feasible these designs could exist in-universe representing different breeds. If I was to have a go at redesigning the Loth Cat, I'd add the features seen on real cats, like functioning ears, going for something larger like that seen on a Maine Coon or a lynx, making them appear more heavy-set and return to the cat-like eyes. I looked at other round-headed and polite cats for their wide mouths, and for the nose I experimented with a more cat-like nose that might have been absent in the original design as a result of stylization, or perhaps they have something more like a rabbit's nose. What do you think?
Loth Cats. That was an interesting translation over from seeing them in Rebels to appearing in, live action. Yeah, they're CG looking, but I wouldn't mind taking one home, even if it did claw my face off. I think it's a clear case of, using the CG like they did for Grogu versus the, what do we do?
Yes, the Loth Cat. It did not look nearly as gremlin in the live action. And what I liked about the Loth Cat was how much of a goddamn gremlin it was. I mean, they did a good enough job as they could to the translation. It's tricky to translate something that cartoony into live action, but it lost its gremlin aspect, and I love a good gremlin. But, they did what they could. And I goddamn hate CGI, though. Well, CGI, I don't hate it. It has a purpose, and it's come a long way from the old days. But I've always been a fan of practical effects. But no, I think they did a decent job of translating it. It was always going to be something that was going to be tricky to properly translate to live action.
I just love them all, to be honest. I really can't decide which one is my favorite, because they are all very cute and they are all very sweet in their own way. But I do love the fluffy looking ones very much. Of course, I know all of them are fluffy, but I do think in the Ahsoka series they look the fluffiest, so I really like them.